And then they react slower because they can't anticipate and react as quickly as they should. So they seem late to everything. Again, they might not be any slower, but they're late to everything. So what does it look like? Slower.
Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you once again for having me. I
It's
love this.
Friday.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I say this every single time, but I'm really excited for this topic because, as you said to me, and you're like, I really want to talk about this. It's needed.
Speed, right?
Speed. Who doesn't love more speed?
It's so funny because the last few weeks, all of my episodes have been on speed because I just feel it's an endless discussion, especially in the soccer community and in just team sports, field based sports. I think speed can get really butchered by a lot of people,
Hmm.
or some people. They really know what they're doing as far as speed and they thrive. And they're the ones who are surpassing everyone. They're the ones who are flying on the field when it matters. But I want to talk about a lot of different aspects in speed. So I think a lot of concern with the sports parents listening is their young female athlete is maybe slowing down and she's looking
Hmm.
slower than others on the field, or maybe she's a step behind than what she used to be. So I want parents to really just consider other factors in all of this instead of just when we're looking at absolute speed.
Hmm. Well, I think part of the issue is, right, we think of speed sometimes as an island unto itself, like it's just speed. And so, we have these inquiries all the time. You and I talk about this. My daughter needs to get faster. And I know it's painful to watch as a parent when, your daughter at 10 was the fastest on the field and she could go coast to coast, when they were younger. But the game changes and so does she. And I think the game changes also. You start moving to bigger fields, the tactics start to be a little bit different, as well as developmentally, she's going through changes that um that change the way that she moves. And if you and I both time kids when we do work on speed, because we want to have a baseline and then see what the improvement is. If they were timed, I bet you their times don't go down. But there's so many other factors that we want to talk about today that lend themselves to speed that we have to address, not just speed training, not just hiring a speed coach to try to get them to run faster from point A to point B. Because kids don't really slow down, in my opinion. Other kids catch up, and then other factors start to play into how fast they look on the field because of where they're positioned, when they react, how fast or slow that reaction is. In my opinion, the issues are much more neurological and somewhat uncontrollable versus merely we need to hire a speed coach and we're going to do a bunch of drills and she'll be fast again.
So what's the first one? You had a whole list here for your factors that go into
Hmm.
speed. So maybe we can talk about soccer
Hmm.
IQ. I mean, you have
Right.
players that are
Hmm.
fast on paper, maybe they get the best times, and then when they get on the soccer field, they look like the slowest ones out there because
Hmm.
they lack the soccer IQ. So maybe we can
Right.
get into that.
Yeah, I think we definitely touch on that one first. I also want to say this to people that are viewing and maybe watching this. They'll be watching it whenever. It could be a year from now. Stay to the end because I want to talk about things that are definitely controllable and where you should start. Right? We don't start with a speed coach. We start with things we can control, and I want to talk about that to wrap it up at the end. But soccer IQ, as I just mentioned, the tactics when you're playing 6v6 or 8v8 or 8v9 when you're little are different, and depending on the situation are somewhat non-existent. Again, we can have a child, male or female, that can get the ball defensively right outside the box and dribble the length of the field and score. Oh my God, he's so fast. She's so fast. And, they're dominant. Tactics are not as, they're not emphasized as much. And I like that as a country, we moved to smaller fields. Anyone as old as I am remembers when I was 6, we were playing on full size fields. We didn't play on little fields with pup nets because we didn't know better. We shortened the size of the fields and the number of players, but it's still congested enough where the thought is we can get more touches on the ball to more kids, right? And then as we spread out, once we go from say 8v8, 9v9 to 11v11, the tactics are different. You have to have a soccer IQ. You have to be able to scan, right? You have to be able to scan and see how plays are developing and how you may or may not affect the play, even when you're not in it, right? You have to start to anticipate. This is on my list. You have to start to predict and anticipate so that you can react quicker. And what I see a lot of is when they make that transition to a bigger field, they think, oh, I have so much more time, so much more space, but the tactics are different. So they're constantly out of position, right? And then they react slower because they can't anticipate and react as quickly as they should. So they seem late to everything. Again, they might not be any slower, but they're late to everything. So what does it look like? Slower. So they need to work on their soccer IQ. Some of that is helped with great coaching, right? In practice sessions,
Pick up.
pick up, right? But really being aware, having, if you're going to talk to your son or daughter when it's appropriate, not in the car ride home, right? But when it's appropriate and everyone's calm and you can have a really good conversation about the game, have them really start thinking about where they are in relation to the ball and every other player on the field, and start thinking about, am I in a good spot? As they get much older, tactics, as you know, become super important, and you have tactical goals every single game. This is what we are trying to accomplish against this opponent tactically. When they're younger, it's just you go play. Like you're literally just letting them out there and play, and a great coach will just observe in a professional manner and always taking notes. And then how can I, after the fact, give them tips on how to make that play better or technically do whatever they did better. Maybe give them some tips on how if you get wide and out near the sidelines, that can help you, give you more time. But just like everything else with the game, it's developmental. It doesn't happen overnight. And so just to wrap it up from my standpoint, I feel like for parents and kids, when the game changes, sometimes it can be like a slap in the face. It's such a different game, and they're going through all these, biological, hormonal, psychological, all these humanistic developmental changes. It can be a recipe. It can be a recipe for why is she so slow now.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Free Lap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Free Lap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Free Lap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing. I think you touched on the tactical piece is so important, and being able to have that readiness for your next run or move on to the ball. And I think another piece of that is just your positioning of your body. So one of the most simple ones is opening up your hips towards where you need to sprint to.
Yeah,
So if you're about to receive a through ball, you can't have your back facing where you're about to run. So
right.
that's just a simple fix that players can start getting into good habits with and being aware of at their team practices or their group training sessions, because that could be the difference in you getting ahead of a player who's faster than you on paper, but the fact that your body is in an advantageous position, you're going to get there quicker. So it's just like little fixes like that. And that's like a technical fix within a tactical context.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
100%.
sense.
That's a great point.
Now, anything else you would add to that? Or the next one is growth spurts. I know there's a lot to be said there. So, do you want to move on to the next one or?
Yeah. So what I have on my list, I think we have the same list, is growth spurts, and then right after it is the technical part of of sprinting or form. And for me, one is a great segue into the other. Um, it's a very complex topic, growth spurts. The way I put it to parents, so I'll put it to you guys today, is I use an iPhone analogy. Imagine if you had an iPhone 11 and now all of a sudden you upgrade and you get the new iPhone 15 or 16, but you're still running off of iOS 10 or 11 or 12, right? You have, from a hardware standpoint, you have the most powerful, up to date phone you can get. But if the software isn't there, in other words, the brain isn't connecting to that phone, we all know it won't work well. You have to update your phone. When the auto updates come in, you have to do it. You already know your phone starts to lag or glitch or some apps don't work right. It's very, very analogous to what their bodies go through. And except for this fact, we can't just upload new software. That's human development. We can't rush it. We can't just tell a brain. It's like telling your daughter be smarter in school. No, there's a process of learning and it takes years and years and years. There used to be this saying, and there's a lot of truth to it. Oh, he or she just has to grow into their body. You know, you see that big kid, you can see little flashes of brilliance, but they kind of run like a newborn deer and they're kind of awkward. Really, their brain has to grow into their body. Okay. So that's a really important thing to try to absorb and digest and actually accept that you can't rush it. And when that software is not talking to the phone or to the hardware, their bodies, the other thing that can happen is technically they run differently. They're a little bit more upright maybe when they're trying to accelerate. There's no like forward lean in, so there's no drive. They start pulling themselves forward instead of driving the field behind them. They're pounding their, foot into the ground like a hammer. Things change because of that. I will say this, aside from the software aspect of it, the other thing that happens during growth spurts, especially the big ones, when you're like, oh my gosh, I can't keep clothes on her because she's growing so fast. I keep having to buy new clothes or new cleats. Um, Bones grow faster typically than muscles and tendons do. So they're inherently tight without even playing. There's just all this tightness on all their muscles, and tightness doesn't help you run faster, does it? Okay. So those two go hand in hand. And I think that hopefully gives you enough context with growth spurts to, as a parent especially, to be like, okay, I need to be patient. And you do. And you do. Just be patient because again, you can't just upload the new iOS into her and all of a sudden everything's going to click. You'll see it click over time as she just grows up.
Yes. And I know it's hard for parents to hear, just ride it out, be patient, but it
Hmm.
truly is a storm to weather because, like you
Hmm.
said, all those factors, the bones growing rapidly, and even like the weight aspect, the girls gain more of the weight in the chest and hips. I mean, that can really set off some of your running mechanics. So,
Hmm.
just understanding what's happening during this time and not, getting mad about it or like getting on her too much,
Yeah.
but still giving her the tools to still develop physically. And I know we'll discuss this soon with the controllables and getting movement variety and motor skills. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just important. Parents are patient. And ages 11 to 13 in girls, I mean, it's anything goes. I mean, I would also suggest parents, please don't compare your girl who's 11 years old to the other 11-year-old next to her because they're
Hmm.
going to be insanely different in heights and abilities and speeds because so much is going on, whether you're a late mature or early mature. Just accept her where your daughter is at in her journey. Like, please don't
A
compare to
hundred
others. Like,
percent.
is she improving? Is she still having fun? Because
Hmm.
joy is the most important at this age. I think we get caught up in performance
Hmm.
numbers. I don't track speed times until after growth spurt when it actually matters. And
Same.
yeah, I don't do any tracking with my under 13s. And I think the
Hmm.
key is still have fun, develop them athletically, and that's all you can do, and let the clock do its job with the growth spurt.
100%. I'll also add this: parents that have played, don't compare your daughter or your son to you. You're not the same either. I know genetically you have a lot of the same DNA, but talking about what you did when you were 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, or how you handled it, she is her own person, and not everything is identical. I'll also say this, and this one might be hard to hear. Coaches don't like when I say this. Just because you did it when you were a kid doesn't mean it was right then either. Right? Because it was like, oh, well, I just ran 4 miles a day, and well, that was great for you, and you got through that. It doesn't mean it's optimal for your daughter. So don't compare her to anybody, including yourself. I just wanted to add that caveat because I hear that all the time. Well, I played in college, and so I'm like, that good for you. That's awesome that you played in college, but your daughter is 12 and her confidence is getting shot right now because all she's hearing is she's slowed down. She's not as fast as she used to be. She probably feels that. She's on a bigger field. The competition's better. She is in an SHIT storm right now.
Oh yeah.
You playing D1 college soccer doesn't help her.
Yeah.
And it sounds harsh, but just love on her. Just tell her you love her so much. You're there to support her in whatever way she needs. And, yes, try to give her opportunities. Um, I almost said to get better. And we weren't going to talk about this, but I can't stand people also associate lack of speed with like there's something wrong with their kid.
Right. Right.
They're a beautiful young person that's trying to play a game they love with their friends, and that's all it should be. There's nothing wrong with them. Okay, they don't run like this person. Again, it's the comparison game. Well, she's an early succeeder, right? She got the early upgrade to her iPhone. You're still waiting for yours to come in. Just just be patient. There's nothing wrong with her. She's going to be okay. Help her weather the storm.
Mhm.
Be that lighthouse, that beacon, that rock she can count on, because she needs you more than ever right now, especially if she's competitive in a competitive situation, 11 to 14 years old. Yeah.
I love that. And I think just to help parents know when their daughters are really going through it. So if a girl is slowing down, here are some ways to tell if she's in the middle of her growth spurt. So usually the feet start going up in size just all of a sudden you're
Mhm.
buying like a size up or two in cleats.
Mhm.
Maybe she still hasn't gotten her menstrual cycle yet. Usually the growth spurt happens right before that first menstrual cycle, the onset.
Mhm.
And if she's starting to maybe get a little bit more weight just in the chest and hips, normal maturation and development of females, those are just some telltale signs. And if that's
Mhm.
all going on, have some grace if she's slowing down. I had Dr.
Mhm.
Sean Cumming on the podcast a year ago, and he researches growth and maturation impact on performance in young athletes. And he says, look, sometimes that 6 to 12 months of growth is just, again, it's a storm to weather, but there
Mhm.
are things you can do to empower her and make it better, which I think kind of segues nicely into.
Mhm.
I really want to touch on the movement variety, Dave, and just developing physical literacy during this time. So, what
Mhm.
is physical literacy and why is it important for speed development, but also just overall health of the athlete?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because physical literacy, in my opinion, covers a lot, and it covers some other topics we have on the list. So I'm glad you went there next. Physical literacy is what PE used to be. Physical education in school. Think of that word, physical education. They're becoming literate physically. They're learning how to move well. What does that mean? Efficiently, proficiently. Can they begin to move mechanically in a way where they can do more work with less effort? Who wouldn't want that? That's efficiency. That's largely what you and I do with our, especially our older, more elite athletes. It's all about efficiency and proficiency and how much work can they do. Um, so the things that need to be addressed, especially at this age, aren't ladder drills. They're not, beep tests. They're not 40-yard or 40-yard timed runs. Like those can be fun a little bit, but it's working on all elements of coordination and again connecting the software to the hardware wherever they are in their physical development, right? And so what types of things do we work on? Balance, both static, standing still, and dynamic when they're moving, right? We talk about, when it used to be a kid was either coordinated or they weren't. Now we know there's all these different aspects. So there's balance, static, and dynamic. There's something called kinesthetic differentiation. That is, if you know you're running toward like the sideline, your brain being able to figure out how fast you can still go, and so that you can get as close to that line as possible without going over it and going out of bounds to stop and go back the other way. So there's force production, force absorption, how much strength do I need to like slow down? What mechanics do I need? What posture should my body be in? Your brain, your supercomputer has to go through all of that. That's kinesthetic differentiation. That's one aspect. Another one is depending on where you are on the field, your brain has to figure out how hard and how to strike the ball to get it in the back of the goal. There's a million different formulas that your brain goes through so you get the right spin rate, the right curve, the right height, the right angle of your plant foot, the right positioning of your plant, all these things. We can train that very easily with play. Childhood games do a great job at that. Systemic strength is another element of coordination because it helps kids stay connected to their body spatially. Systemic strength is just crawling, climbing, pushing, changing elevation, big movements. Um, the way that I love training that, and I just saw a video of you doing this, and I was like, yes,
Oh, from
obstacle
yesterday?
obstacle courses
Oh,
are
yeah.
great. for coordination training in so many different elements.
And
So
fun. And fun.
super fun. And I'll tell you this, you let a kid or a group of kids create and then go through an obstacle course, be the easiest hour of training you've ever had as a coach and the most rewarding for you and the kids. So, I mean, we could go on and on and on. Spatial awareness, we just talked about. Contralateral coordination, can they coordinate their right side and their left side? Can they coordinate the same side, ipsilateral? Because there's times they have to do that. It goes on and on and on and on. So that's physical literacy in a nutshell. All those things that on the other end of training physical literacy, and I love this, one of my favorite terms in our field, it creates athletic intelligence.
Oh, yeah, I
Athletic
like that.
intelligence. So what you end up with is a very athletically intelligent, and if they have good character, a very coachable kid.
Mm.
That's the kid that has full body listening. They're intent on hearing what you're saying, trying to do what you're asking, and they can do it the first or second time through because they're athletically intelligent. They're so connected. Their software and their hardware are in sync. That's what physical literacy training does. And if you don't train with one of us or you haven't had one of our, engaged in one of our programs, that largely is what Eric and I do for a living. And that still comes into play. I have two D1 girls today that are coming in. We're still working on physical literacy in certain ways that'll help her be more efficient, more proficient, stronger, faster, everything. It's not just, and they hired me as a speed coach, but we're working on physical literacy still because I want them athletically intelligent. So no matter what they're called to do on the soccer field, yep, got it.
Steve, that's a really good point. So I think when we talk about the younger ones, like the under 13s, yes, it's all about that movement variety, developing all
Hmm.
of those motor skills. But I think for our older girls, the college and the pro athletes, it's just as valuable because they can kind of get that playback, and it's like a refresher for them because when you get to that high of a level, it can become very stringent and mundane. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes moving away from that to return to that play can be very valuable. It's not just for the young ones. I mean, for the young ones, that should be the main focus. But I think you're right. I think the older girls could really use that as well. We actually played dodgeball yesterday with our older group for our agility
Hmm.
training.
Yeah. And so just so you guys know, just to, like, because you maybe never seen in real life more of an elite older athlete train, whether it was some of my pro athletes or my D1 girls now. You want to see competitiveness come out and intensity, let them play a game that they've never played before, some weird form of dodgeball or tag in a way that they've never played. Or I like playing this game called Cross the River, especially when we're doing regeneration work for recovery. So it's either agility discs on one leg or three balance pods, and they have to take the three balance pods and stay on them. They're little. So if you guys don't know what they are, they're little air-filled pods, and they have to stay on them. So there's a balance. They get three of them, and they have to go from one spot to the other, and it's usually like 5 yards at the most, and they race each other.
Mm,
And if you fall in the river, you have to start over. Meaning, if you touch the ground with your hand or your foot, you have to stay on these pods that are unstable. And they're getting movement through their hips, their knees, their ankles, their legs are moving and getting fluid and swelling out of them. But they compete like crazy.
yeah. It's so
And
fun to
it's
see
so
too.
fun. They're laughing and
Yeah.
smiling.
I
So,
think, Dave, for your D1 girls, that's so valuable. And we've talked about this before, D1 strength and conditioning. It's a lot of it is stuck in just the sagittal plane. There's not a lot of variety. So to give these college athletes that variety, it's so needed because in that setting, I understand strength coaches are, reporting to the AD and it's all about numbers, 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 but they just get stuck in this box of just performance and just not a whole lot of variety.
Yeah, 100%. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I'll
And
write that one
I don't
down.
want, I don't want to, we talked about this in a better way because, when we talk offline, it's strength coaches and depending on their situation have it really tough too. They have a lot of athletes under their care. They have, like you said, they have to show improvement through statistics, through data, through numbers. So things become very vanilla and several different teams from completely different sports are doing the same lifts. And it's, how strong can I get my girls to be? And so I don't find them all at fault. I'm on your side, you guys. But as an industry, I'm always looking at, how can we do better by our athletes?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a whole, you're so right, but that's a whole other topic.
It is. And I think another one as far as the, coaching speed thing with the older girls, I think now we're in this culture of how can the speed coach look the coolest or go viral on social media, and it's become
Mhm.
less about coaching them up and more about the image on social media and these fancy drills. It's like, no, you should be posting things where you're coaching the hell out of these movements, and they're just basic movements that shouldn't go viral. Like, no one should look at it and be like, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, like that's so
Yeah,
cool." It should just be like, "Oh, okay." Like, I want my speed reels to go the least viral in all honesty. But
right,
it's just
right.
crazy because we're now in a time where the art of coaching is going away fast, and you
Hmm.
don't see athletes being corrected on their form, their posture, how their eyes are gazing, their lower body sprint mechanics, at least the high school
Hmm.
and college girls. It's like we are just moving towards these drills that just make people ooh and ah, but there's no coaching going on. It's just what looks the coolest.
When I was still running my facility, from time to time, what I would post, it might be a group of 10 to 12-year olds or 10 to 13-year olds on the first day of them learning a lift. And it does not look good. And then in the caption, I can explain what we're doing and how we're teaching it so that, because I'm all about educating, right? But if you were to just look at it, I mean, if you're a layperson, maybe you wouldn't know the difference. But as a strength coach, as a performance coach, if I just was scrolling, I'd say, "What the is this? Like that's awful technique, right?" Um, I say that to put in context when all you're going for is reach and likes and how many followers. It it's human nature. It changes how you program, and that's irresponsible, in my opinion. It's irresponsible when when an influencer has, there's a lot of reach, a lot of views on their Instagram or whatever it is, and the words come out similar to this: if you're a soccer midfielder and you need more speed, you have to do these three drills, and they're advanced, even if what's demonstrated is right on the money, it's perfect form. It's irresponsible because that could be 3 years of progression to get to that point. And maybe this kid is dysregulated in their head and they have performance anxiety because they've gone through that growth spurt. They're on a new field. They're disconnected from their body. And maybe they just need some tissue work, someone to really believe in them and help them believe in themselves. and some mobility work. Maybe that's it. And you've had it too. I've had hour-long sessions where we do two things. Well, three, including talk and let her vent, let her get out her frustration, let her feel heard, let her start to feel like she's understood and she's not like everybody's looking at her and she just looks slow and she doesn't feel right in her own body and she hates the way she feels. Because when you're that dysregulated, she's also carrying that in her entire body, in the 250 million nerve endings that are in her connective tissue called fascia. We now know that holds emotion. If you're dysregulated and anxious and just you're so afraid to make a mistake and you're afraid not to perform and you're almost expecting not to perform, she will be slower, or I'll say it this way, unable to be faster. So we also need to help her regulate her emotions, manage them, not get rid of anxiety, not get rid of fear. We don't do that. How does she manage it? Is it breathing techniques? Is it switch words to help her, to help her cancel out negative thoughts and reset while she's on the field after she makes a mistake? That's all part of performance training. It's not just max box jumps, hurdle jumps, like all that stuff is great. Sprint drills, I do it all too, but it's a part of what we do. And I'm telling you right now, parents and coaches, if we miss out on the emotional, mental aspect of what we do, we're not even meeting her halfway where she is. And we're doing her a disservice. So, like, this is a real roundabout way to get back to your original point. Social influencers aren't going to give her that. That's not where you should be getting your information, because social influence is a much different goal than education and actual helping. And I've gone back and forth with a few, and I won't do it anymore. A couple influencers are like, you can't tell me that this one drill couldn't help a 14-year-old get faster. It could. You're right, for the right 14-year-old, but not one that's doing this. Oh, wow, look at that. While they're dysregulating their dopamine uptake, so now they can't even react when they get on the field because they've been on their phone for 4 or 5 or 6 hours before a later in the day game, right? Like, it's all these things, but it goes back to your original point. Let's just hire a speed coach. That's what she needs. And hey, I'll take the business because I'm going to give her what she needs. But like, start with her as a human being. Now I'm getting fired up.
I know, and we're 45 minutes in, and we have to wrap this up. But I think that would actually be a whole separate podcast too. The mind body component of speed, the emotional component. It's
Mm-hmm.
very fascinating. There's a lot more popping up in that space, so I'll make a note of that one as well. But I think
Wait.
this segues nicely into the other controllable factors in speed that no one really thinks about. And just coming back to what you said about, when a girl is slow, parents think we need to add more hurdle drills, more ladder drills, a speed coach, a second speed coach. And I think sometimes the girl just needs to be more recovered.
Yeah, we've talked about this, right? And I've been posting a lot about this. She's not undertrained. She's under recovered. It's counterintuitive because most humans would be like, "Oh, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I need to do more." I moved to an 11v11 full size field. I'm tired at the end of the game. Yeah, not only is the field bigger, but your minutes increased. You might have gone from 70-minute games to 80-minute games, right? And if you're a starter, 80 minutes, it's a long time when you were playing 70 on a smaller field. right? So, oh, I need to do more conditioning. And as she starts to get more tired, seemingly less fast, seemingly less strong, training more. We've talked about this. It's overtraining. She's under recovered. So, I mean, and that's a huge one in my list of the things I would start with any parent, coach, or kid who wants to get faster. Dial in on your sleep, nutrition, hydration, lower your screen time, recovery. If you don't start there, I mean, again, I'll take any kid and help them in all aspects. But I almost feel like saying, if you don't have that dialed in, you're not ready to train with me, especially like if it's someone who wants to train because they're going to play next year in college, you better dial in on that because I don't want to waste your parents' money and your time training where you're under recovered all the time. So
Oh
think
yeah.
of it that way. But
Ugh.
those are all controllable. You can say yes or no to all of those. You
I
can
really
make conscious decisions to do all those things.
I think you're right with those things. It's like start there first and you have to earn your speed training because if you're
Oh,
under
I love
eating,
that.
yeah, if you're under eating, you're training 7 days a week with no recovery, then your speed training is going to be royally useless. And I'm honest with all my girls and parents all the time about this. I'm like, look,
Hmm.
if you're doing multiple speed and conditioning programs on top of mine, you're working out with your high school conditioning coach, please don't come to my agility days. Please don't come to my speed days because you're going to get nothing out of them. You're just going to be tired, sore. You're going
Hmm.
to be yawning the whole time. I've seen that as well. And I'm like, you're not going to get nothing out of this. And
Hmm.
ideally, I think most teenage girls need 2 full off days a week. And in the summer, ideally 3. I mean, soccer's not really going on anymore after June ends, after the first week in July ends for
Mm.
ECNL. Please have 3 full off days a week by that point. What are you doing?
After after having once you have your last club game of the season, after you take 2 weeks off,
Amen.
where you go on a family vacation, you're just hitting the beach, you're I don't know, sleep all day. Like, and we've talked about this and we both agreed, so I'll just put it out there again. Our most successful athletes, I'm looking right at the camera to every player and parent and coach, our most successful players are the ones that earn the right to rest the most. 100% of the time. My athletes that rested the most had the longest and best careers in the game.
Yep. And with
So, and
that,
that's yeah, it starts at 11 years old. Like, don't wait until you're 18 to start getting rest.
right. Well,
And I would
if you
argue
make it to
when you're
then,
11 and you're going through all those changes, you need more rest, more nutrition, more hydration, more sleep than any other athlete. You actually need more calories than I do
yep.
because it takes a tremendous amount. You burn a tremendous amount of energy just growing up. So then you have your sport on top of that, and that's science. That's my opinion. You'd be shocked if I told you the amount of calories your 12-year-old growing young soccer player actually needs per day of good food.
Yeah. It's
So
so
anyway,
true. It's so
yeah.
true because those nutrients, that energy, it's required for explosive outputs and sustains explosive output. So, are you not just fast in the first half? Are you keeping that same speed in the second half? And that comes down to nutrition and sleep. And
Mhm.
yes, smart speed training, but please nail down the nutrition and sleep first. Earn your
100%.
speed.
I love it. I think that's a good, earn your speed. That's almost a great title for this podcast. How to earn
Yeah,
your speed.
I think no, I think I'll do that. Noted. Well, Dave, again, as always, this was awesome. And I think it really gives the sports parents listening just some other factors in speed that not many people discuss that are just as important as finding the right speed trainer and doing the right training. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please share this podcast with someone who you think this will help or impact. And Dave will be on again. Don't worry. We already have a few topics written down. So definitely we'll look forward to those, and I will see everyone on the next episode.